All right, ladies and gentlemen, the Cantarella situation is crazy.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there has been some news that has struck the Wuthering Waves space in the past couple of days. Only one day ago, there's been an announcement on the Play Store and probably Play Stores and maybe even PC ratings online. Wuthering Waves has now become a 16+ game.
No, it hasn't. So what this means is that the developers have been flagged. And the developers have been flagged for doing too much scantily clad attire. And what getting this tag means does not mean that now we're going to get porn and nudity in Wuthering Waves. What this means is that Wuthering Waves and Kuro Games just lost a shit ton of sponsors. This is a very bad thing that just happened, which means that now this game is going to be strucken by the CCP and is going to get a lot of our models censored. Now, I'm hoping that they can do what Genshin did and censor them in one version and give us the original outfits in global. However, I don't know if they're going to do that. I've already seen two censorships hit the second tower in the form of, I believe, Adult Cartethia as well as Shorekeeper. But no, this is actually a disaster to happen in Wuthering Waves.
And boy, oh boy, when we dive right on into it and we see the only reason why, that's a little bit interesting. It appears it is because of nudity. And so when it comes to this whole 16+ nudity thing that's going on over here, a lot of people have had some theories. Maybe it's because of a character like Chang Li, who, you know, as she goes throughout her kit, as she builds up her Forte circuit, she starts losing clothing on her body. And when she gets to 4 stacks, like her jacket disappears, a bunch of like these articles, they all disappear, that sort of stuff. It might be because of her. Or it's because of a character like Carlotta, right? Where her resonance ability is you know, her pulling literal rifles out of her tacit mark, which is conveniently placed right over her ass.
Yeah, she's pulling a gun out of her ass, of course. It's a very American thing to do.
Or it could be a character like Camellia, where her liberation animation zooms in on that tacit mark that's happening over here and gives you a nice view of the very small assets that she has.
She don't got nothing there, man. Okay? She should have just held her face and opened her mouth for that fucking trailer. It would have been way hotter.
Or it could be a character like Shorekeeper.
Ain't nobody looking at Camellia's boobs. We all know that's the truth.
Who, for a lot of people, right, doesn't look like she's wearing too much, but, you know, it is relatively tasteful. Maybe it's Jinsei, or it's Yinlin. But in reality, a lot of people are theorizing about this, which I do believe is the case. The most recent 5-star limited character that's come to the roster, Cantarella. And let's be real here, right? This character is probably the biggest example of gooner bait that we've had within Wuthering Waves.
Yeah, and it's fucking amazing. Now, I'll be real. I know what they're going to talk about. The whole quote-unquote camel toe situation on Cantarella, it was never that. It was legit just a line. It was not that big of a deal. And if people actually saw a real pussy in real life, they would understand that they look way different, but I'm not shocked they haven't.
A lot of the things when it comes to this character seem to defy the laws of gravity. For example, how is this entire situation going on when she doesn't really have any of like the support that you might see in the normal day-to-day?
It's called magic, and it exists in video games, and it's amazing, and leave her alone.
Of question marks that might be occurring in your head. However, there's been some research done by what I would call probably the most degenerate part of the Wuthering Waves community.
The most based part. They're called the base department.
There's been some research done. Perhaps there were some reports made to all the Google Play stores. And that is, well, not what's going on up here. It's actually what's going on
beneath the surface, beneath the rocks and rubble, the true danger comes out.
I feel like I feel so odd doing this. It's something that's going on down.
Why do people get so nervous about doing that? Am I crazy? I really feel like it's not that big of a deal. They're anime characters. You know what I'm saying? Like, who cares? You know, do whatever the hell you want, brother.
Down here, I've got some historical articles. I've got some glue. I'm not taking an angle like this of this character for no reason at all. I'm doing.
Oh, it's because he's gay. Oh, okay. Oh, that makes sense.
Doing it for a pretty damn good one. They've actually got some detectives in the Wuthering Waves subreddit. They have some actual detectives in the Wuthering Waves subreddit. And ladies and gentlemen, here are the results of their findings. They removed Cantarella's camel toe. So yesterday, April 8th, I saw a meme about
It was a line in her underwear, bro. It was not a fucking camel toe, brother. Come on.
a specific detail in Cantarella's design, and I checked it out. But today, April 9th, I noticed that they've unfortunately removed that detail. What do you think about this? And they've got the before picture, and they've got the after picture. And the after picture, right, is literally what we have in the game. My saturation's like a little bit high. I'm actually getting blinded by it. I should probably change those settings later. And that's the current state of the game. But this is the thing, ladies and gentlemen. This was kind of just like a fabric seam that you find on a lot of pieces of clothing. It was kind of like
Nobody's pussy goes that high up. Your pussy flappers, brother, they don't go to the middle of your crotch. That's not how a vagina looks like, bro.
approaching the design barriers and like the rating barriers that would lead it
Oh, she's a fish. You wouldn't get it. Oh, okay.
to, going from a 12 plus game to a 16 plus game. But in reality, right, when you have games like Nikke, and I don't even think I need to show footage from a game like Nikke for you to know what I'm talking about. Nikke is still a 12 plus game. You have games like Brown
My editor will. Editor, put in some great B-roll in Nikke. Choose your favorite.
No, no, no. I will not be doing that, Baldy. Do you forget that we have an active warning on the channel? That was by sheer coincidence, caused by Cantarella. Who could have imagined? I guess I can leave a link in the video description for the connoisseurs.
Us 2, which are pretty much way more gooner, being 12 plus. Snowbreak is 12 plus, and of course ZZZ, one of the most gooner games of them all, is 12 plus as well. And so with all that in mind, I do believe that there has been some pretty active censoring done in the game to possibly contest the 16 plus rating. We do have to keep in mind though that gacha games as a whole probably should just be 18 plus in the first place, regardless of any of the stuff going on.
I agree 1,000,000%. That makes me so happy that Saint agrees. 1,000,000% agree. If you have any form of gambling or gambling-like in your game, it should be for 18 and up. 100%. 100%. Stick to Mario games until you're fucking 18, then play whatever the fuck you want.
On because they got gambling in them. There's been more updates made in the most recent patch, which I do believe is the attempt to bring this rating down back to 12 plus, and that's been changes to Fleur de Lis. As you're all familiar, this boss...
This one broke my heart, I'm not gonna lie. The Shorekeeper one, or the Cantarella one, I didn't give a fuck about. I think it looks better without the same, because then people aren't weird about it. But dude, Fleur de Lis's big old ass in a thong was so fucking hot. It was unreal hot. Fuck, bro. I wish they would put it back. I hate these granny panties that every single character is forced to wear. It's so fucking awful to me, bro. It's so awful.
It's had some pretty spicy.
No, it ain't El Kuro. Guys. Kuro had nothing to do with this. This is a LCCP. Okay? I don't know why anybody would be blaming Kuro right now. That is a brainless take. They had nothing to do with this.
This weekly boss had some pretty spicy clothing below the waist, and now she's a bit more covered up. I do believe there's going to be another comparison that's going to be made over here to what it looked like prior to this patch and prior to this update.
It was beautiful.
Before, she did have like a bit of like a leotard swimsuit looking thing going on over here, and now we've got an after in terms of the censorship.
Bro,
and
the
a
before
lot of
was
people,
insane.
they might be upset with this, right? A lot of people, they might not be too happy with what's going on. A lot of people, they play games for different reasons. And it's pretty clear that Wuthering Waves has introduced a lot of pretty spicy stuff in patch 3.2, and now they're going ahead and perhaps rolling back some of those more ambitious design decisions.
We're never gonna get another trailer like Cantarella's. And that breaks my heart so much. It was so peak. It was so fucking peak.
When we think about Wuthering Waves as a whole, it is like a very story-based game where you're going out doing a bunch of different things. There are so many different types of characters, some relatively mature storylines. And we have to think about it in this way. There's not that much in the game that would warrant a 16 plus rating other than those designs. And so it is pretty much, in my opinion, the take. When you consider games like Genshin Impact, their designs didn't go this crazy. I do believe that Wuthering Waves had a little bit more.
The biggest thing we ever got was Rosaria. Rosaria's original boobs were fucking insane. And then they nerfed them by 80% before they came out. Bro, that shit broke my heart.
Freedom. Maybe they didn't have as much of like a, they definitely don't have as wide of a player base as Genshin Impact. And as a result, people felt a little bit more, maybe the developers over at Kuro Games felt a bit more comfortable pushing the barriers of what they were able to put in. But unfortunately, after the 3.2 update, it appears that the game has either been mass reported. It appears that the game might have been brought to the attention of certain authorities over at the Play stores. And
Genshin fans reported it. I can't prove that. This is purely conjecture. Genshin Impact ruined Wuthering Waves.
Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on which side you are of the conversation, well, all of that has changed. Stop saying 3.2. Sorry, I meant 2.2. And so at this point, we do have footage of the older ones. We do know what the past is compared to the present, but I do believe that this is going to set a bit of a new precedent for Wuthering Waves. I do believe that this means that what we're seeing on the right over here is going to be the norm moving forward, but I don't necessarily know if that's really going to be a huge issue. We can.
It's a really big issue to me. I'm so tired of granny panties. I am. But, as long as we can keep on getting titty and mouth fan service, I'm fine.
You can clearly see that a lot of the designs in the game before weren't really on Cantarella's level. A lot of the designs in the game were already, somewhat a little bit more on like the conservative side. And I'm doing this, again, entirely for research.
If you take Cantarella's body and you put it in Camellia's outfit, you will get the most slutified character in the game. Camellia just doesn't look that slutified because she has no boobs or ass, right? But her outfit is ridiculous.
Search and comparative purposes. This is Jinxi's skin. That was released back in version 2.0. And Jinxi's skin has sort of like been like this the whole time. She doesn't. Okay, again, this is just for research purposes. She doesn't really have, like, she's kind of wearing, like...
Why are we censoring her? Come on! It's a video game character!
The same kind of, like, spats that you would see on, like, Fleur de Lis. She's kind of... you can see, like, over here, she's basically got, like, some pants on. And so, this isn't really something that, like, Kuro Games has, like, super leaned into in terms of their design. And I do think that they were pushing the buttons a little bit in 2.2's update. I do think that they were pushing the buttons pretty significantly in the 2.2 update. And unfortunately, Icarus flew a little bit too close to the sun. Icarus did fly a little bit too close to the sun.
Burned.
The wings melted, and now we're heading back down to Earth. So when it comes to this 16 plus Play Store rating and the nudity reasoning that we're seeing over here, I don't think it's because of any of the existing characters.
We're going to see very frequent censoring happening in Wuthering Waves now in order for Kuro Games to secure their sponsors back, like KFC. And that definitely is a shame. It really, really is a shame. Now, I am hoping that there will be, like, CN censors and globals will remain untouched. But I don't know. That's wishful thinking. I don't really know how to feel about that. I would like Wuthering Waves to put out a post because I'm going to be real, man. Like, if they were to nerf Shorekeeper's boob cleavage or Camellia's cleavage... and I'm going to say something that you can be upset at me for, but I'm going to tell you that I'm right. People should be able to get their fucking money back. If they're going to have to censor, and I know it's not their fault. But no consumer should have to fear that once a character comes out, that it might be altered. Because people are pulling for that character as it is. They are spending up to $300 on a product they're being told that they're going to get. And there better be heavy... And I know it's not Kuro's fault. I know it's not. But it doesn't matter whose fault it is. The consumers are getting fucked. They're paying for a product, and that product is being altered against their want. And that's the truth. And you can be upset at me for that, but you can't tell me how I'm wrong. You can say, it's not Kuro's fault. It's not Kuro's fault. Yeah, it's not. Kuro's getting fucked in this situation 100%. But just because Kuro's getting fucked doesn't mean the consumers also have to get absolutely not. Consumers do deserve some type of compensation for this bullshit. And other motherfuckers who are trying to farm woo-wah will tell you differently, but that's the truth.
Designs. I don't think it's because of any of like those other theories that people might have had with like a dark story or
give us people in global the original skins and let us use them as we want.
any of those other issues. I really do think it's because of this boss, and we're probably going to see when and if Cartithia releases. If she does have this form, it's probably going to be in the similar censored sort of way. And when it comes to Cantarella, right, even though it is pretty much just fabric, it kind of did lean a little bit too much into, you know.
I agree. It's kind of like Scar's dick zipper. It wasn't necessarily porn, but it gave people porn vibes, and I guess that's what they're going for.
Something that might deserve 16 plus. And so, yeah, there's a lot of negative press. There is a lot of potential, you know, stigma.
What did you link me here? In fact, CN, some groups who hate the game have made large-scale reports citing the game's pornographic content. Yeah, that's very, very, very unfortunate. It really does seem like Hoyo shills are trying to destroy Wuthering Waves right now.
Associated with the game that's going to be 16 plus. We all know that Wuwa is approaching its anniversary very, very, very soon.
Oh, and by the way, for anybody who says, oh, dude, that's a crazy, like, overstatement. Brother, getting this game labeled as 16 plus probably just lost them a multi-million amount of dollars. Like, sponsors will pull out the moment that happens, right? This is preventing a lot of people from being able to download the game that are able to download everything else in their competition. No, this is a massive blunder on their record.
Soon, it's approaching.
And now they're going to have to operate out of fear. Now people are going to be second-guessing every character they release in the future if it's too much. And I know a lot of people who play Wuwa played it because the models were sexier. This is a massive fucking L, bro.
Its new Steam launch extremely soon with that anniversary. And I'm sure they're trying to avoid as much negative PR as possible. And, you know, get that whole impression that Wuwa is a Gooner game, blah, 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 all of that, and the negative stigma associated with that out of the way before they get into, right, some of their biggest releases ever, some of the most popular characters. When we look at the designs of characters like Zani.
Let me ask you a question. What's wrong with the game being a Gooner game? Why does it matter? Why is it bad if a consumer jerks off to a video game, but it's fine if a consumer plays a game for 16 hours a day and refuses to get a job? Why? Video games are inherently depraved. They are inherently a waste of time. So why even attempt to make them seem good and innocent and Christian? Just go full degenerate. Who cares? Video games are for people with a degenerate lifestyle. So have them go full degen. It doesn't matter. It legit doesn't matter.
And Kachona, they're, let's be honest here, a lot more conservative compared to what we already have on the roster. So, yeah. You can say, oh, 16 plus was perfectly fine anyways. You have to sign something saying you're 16 plus in Wuwa. The timeline is a fact. Wuwa turned to 16 plus in global in
because of kids, maybe? Fuck them, bro. Hell no. Get these kids the fuck out of my game. Straight up. They ain't got no money. Why the fuck are you trying to sell gacha games to children anyways? They ain't got no money.
The NA stores and the EU stores, and then Kuro rolls out a censorship patch a day or two later. And that's kind of just it. It's pretty clear, and I can say with 95% certainty, these devs want that rating turned back to 12 plus. Hopefully that paints a clearer picture of why some of these updates.
However, I understand why Wuwa needs to get back to 12 plus because that's where a lot of additional revenue comes from for brand safety and for getting advertisers and investors.
Are being made. I don't think that Kuro wanted the game to be 16 or 18 plus. I don't think that that's necessarily the vibe that they're going for.
They don't.
This means that people are far less likely to download and play the game. This really keeps the game a lot more out of reach for what Kuro might think is like their target audience moving forward. And getting this rating back down to a 12 plus, even though all gacha games really should be 18 plus, is probably what Kuro is going for over here. And when we do keep in mind that, again, games like Nikke, games like Brown Does 2,
Nikke is one of the few games where I was able to jerk off to on just the in-game models, because it's that ridiculous.
Games like Snowbreak and games like ZZZ are already still at 12 plus. That's probably where we need to, you know, we got the proof over here of Brown Dust 2 being 12 plus. That's probably where
Brown Dust is fucking ridiculous.
We do want Wuwa. We don't want Wuwa to be the only game that's 16 or 18 plus in an industry where even the spiciest games, right, with the craziest character designs and the most absurd jiggle physics are still 12 plus.
Yep.
Don't blame Kuro Games if you're in that boat of players.
I agree.
Don't blame Kuro Games.
Blame CCP.
Blame whoever was mass reporting this game to the Play Store. And
those people too.
You might know the parties involved when it comes to that. Let me know what you all think. Peace.
It's Hoyo Shills. And we all fucking know it. And the worst thing is, the worst nerfs are yet to come. This might be the future of Camellia. Which, by the way, I will be so fucking pissed if they cover her up. This shit would make me so fucking mad. I C6 this fucking unit for her titties. If she legit gets censored and they get covered up, oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. Once again, I feel horrible for Kuro, but I'll be damned if I get because of the CCP too. Absolutely not.